What's up guys, Taylor Maris here with All Day Training. This is my third video blog in 3 weeks. I'm going for a perfect 52 in 52 weeks. Hold me to that. But ask me questions, that's how we keep coming up with content every week. This week I'm talking about a hot topic, one that all my clients run into at some point in time, or most of them, and people in general. Everybody wants to know, why do I get stuck at losing body fat, losing weight? And there are a lot of reasons depending on the person that's happening. But what I came up with were 6 of the top reasons why either some of my clients or people in general struggle to lose body fat. And before I start on this list, I want you to notice there's a common theme here. And it has to do with muscle mass and its relationship to your metabolism, and how your metabolism plays a role in your ability to burn body fat. So number 6 is not eating enough protein. I run into that all the time with my clients. They get stuck on cutting calories and not eating enough protein. Here's the thing about protein. Protein promotes what? Lean muscle mass, increasing lean muscle mass. A lot of women especially cut out protein for fear that they're going to bulk up, and that's a terrible idea if you're trying to promote a fast metabolism, because how much muscle mass you have has an effect over how fast your metabolism is. So if you're cutting protein out of the diet, you're not promoting lean muscle mass growth. If you're not doing that, then your metabolism is ultimately slowing down. If it slows down, then even though you may be cutting calories and losing weight in the short run, eventually it's going to come back, especially if you are not weight training. So you need to be focusing a lot on protein. A lot of women worry that it's going to bulk them up. That's not the case. Actually, having more lean muscle mass by eating more protein is going to boost metabolism for a host of reasons. One of them being that protein, out of all the macronutrients, all 3 of them, is far more active in the body, requires more energy to digest protein than it does carbohydrate or fat. So essentially the body's working harder. The metabolism is speeding up by digesting protein. So both directly and indirectly, you're increasing your body's ability to burn body fat simply by consuming more protein in your diet. Right? If you're worried about consuming too much meat or fatty-filled protein foods, animal products, then buy a protein supplement. I talked a little bit about that last week. But you got to have protein in there. Everything I talk about on this list today is going to go back to promoting that lean muscle mass so that you can keep your fat-burning furnace up. Number 5, not journaling your food intake. This is a big one, and this goes back to psychology. I have clients all the time that when I ask them for a food journal, I ask them what they ate the previous week. This is my favorite response of all. I didn't write it down, but I remember what I ate for the last 7 days. Yeah, right. Let me tell you something about psychology, guys. We as human beings are hardwired to exaggerate so that it favors our ego, so that we don't have to face the truth. And the truth is that if you were to journal your food, you would surprise yourself at either the amount of food you're eating or what food you're eating at the wrong times. There have been numerous research studies out over the last decade that prove that people who journal their food, that write down what they eat, what time they ate it, around what time, and how much of it they ate, portion size, lost more body fat than people who tried to lose body fat but didn't journal their food. And sometimes these people weren't even educated on what they were supposed to be eating. They just, by holding themselves accountable and seeing on paper what they were putting in their mouth, they were more focused on eating the right foods at the right times and the right amounts. Gotta journal your food. That's a must. Talk to any good athlete, talk to any person that's been truly successful when they're trying to lose body fat or even gain muscle mass. They journal their food. Number 4. Everyone knows this one, carb starvation. Carb starvation. Is it true that if you don't exercise, you should probably rein in the carbohydrates? Probably, because you're not burning enough energy. And if that's the case, you need to get your butt in the gym. Right? There's a whole host of problems if you are cutting carbohydrates out simply because you're not exercising, taking care of yourself physically. But if you are exercising regularly, you absolutely need to have carbohydrates in your diet. Now, should you probably cut back those dinner rolls and some of those starchy, gluttony carbohydrates, or eating those heavily processed foods I'm about to talk about that have a lot of extra sugar? Absolutely. But you've got to have carbohydrates to fuel your day, to fuel your workouts. Let me tell you something. These women that, and sorry, not to sound sexist, but a lot of women, they get on the scale every day when they're extremely cutting their carbohydrate intake, and they're seeing this up and down. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. What's happening is, because they're eating more carbohydrates than once, and then they're starving themselves, they're cutting out their glycogen stores. Glycogen is just carbohydrate stored in liver and muscle. So if they're cutting that out, they're actually just losing mostly water weight. So they're looking on the scale thinking they've lost body fat when that's not what they've lost at all. In fact, they're primarily losing fluid, and then when they eat carbohydrate again, what happens? Scale jumps up, right? So now they're yo-yoing. They're thinking, oh my God, I'm losing fat, I'm gaining fat on a day-to-day basis. It drives them insane. It's because they're starving themselves of carbohydrates and not eating them at the right time. Especially if you train in the gym and you weight train. And performance is the key to maximizing muscle gain, which you need to lose body fat. And just in general, losing body fat from having good workouts. You've got to have a little bit of carbohydrate to fuel your workouts. You deserve a little carbohydrate in moderation around the workout time because it's a nutrient sensitive time. So especially if you're training in the gym, you need a little bit of carbohydrate around workouts. The rest of the day you can focus on fresh vegetables, what we call low GI carbohydrates like half a sweet potato or a full sweet potato if you're a guy, depending on your size. Whole grains are still good. Fibrous type carbohydrates, because fiber doesn't actually break down and get into the blood. So these are good carbohydrates. You need to have these type of carbohydrates in your day. But starving yourself of carbohydrates is actually just setting you up for failure, especially if you're looking on the scale and all you're seeing is weight go up and down. You've got to have a little carbohydrates to stabilize your blood sugar, to help your performance in your workouts, and the performance is going to help you lose more body fat. Number 3, focusing on eating for weight loss instead of muscle gain. By now you should figure out exactly what that means. A lot of people, again I say women, but men do this too, they're just as guilty of this. They focus on cutting their calories in an extreme way from one category or another because they're only focusing on getting the weight down on the scale. This is a huge mistake, guys, because number one, you're probably cutting calories in the wrong place, like protein. And if you're cutting protein and starving yourself, you're not going to gain muscle mass. And you need muscle mass. Why? Because that's what's keeping your metabolism raised. So when you extremely cut calories to lose weight, you're also losing muscle mass. You lose muscle mass, metabolism slows down, your body's ability to burn body fat goes down, and then you just have to continuously eat less and less to maintain that body weight. So now we see the downward spiral. And that downward spiral is only going to set you up for failure because half the weight you lost, or a portion of the weight you lost, wasn't even body fat, it was fluid and it was muscle. Losing muscle is the worst case scenario. You cannot have that happen. So you've got to focus on, in your eating and in your training in the gym, promoting lean muscle mass. Those things keep your body fat furnace burning hot. Now, if you're focusing on muscle gain instead of only weight loss, are you going to lose weight as fast? No, probably not, because you're going to gain a little bit of muscle mass. And as we all know, gaining muscle mass and losing body fat or losing weight at the same time can be difficult at times, but it's possible. Is it going to be slower? Absolutely. But is it going to be long lasting? You bet. So you've got to get that eating in charge for packing on lean muscle mass. Yes, even you ladies, you've got to have lean muscle mass. Look at the best athletes on the planet that are women. They have tons of protein in their diet, a lot. And they don't focus on cutting calories. Number 2, I like this one. All my clients at one point have fallen into this trap. Eating unhealthy health food, right? Everybody's walked down that aisle and you see that box of, well, we won't say the name, we won't say any names of products to protect the guilty. But I'll tell you, every one of us have been guilty of walking down that aisle and seeing that quote-unquote organic can of beans, or those high fiber energy bars that are just packed with all these preservatives and different types of sugar, but because they're low calorie, they're a healthy snack. That's not true. Just because it says it's got whole grain in it, just because it says it's a low calorie food, or because it has no trans fat, we all know that's just a marketing ploy. They're all marketing ploys. A good rule of thumb when you're in that grocery store, stay off these aisles that have these quote-unquote healthy processed foods. Walk around the outer perimeter of your store. Go where the fresh fruit and the vegetables and the nuts and the berries and the seeds and all the fresh meat in the back of that store. The good dairy products like Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. These are all these outer perimeter foods, with the exception of a little bit in the middle. Those are where you stay. You stay off the aisles with these heavily processed foods. Just because you convince yourself you had an 80-calorie bag of pretzels does not mean you made a healthy choice. You didn't. You got to stick with healthy foods. Grow out of the ground foods. Meat, vegetables, seeds, berries, healthy fats, nuts. Go easy on the fat. I know that we say fat's good now, but eating a whole avocado doesn't mean that you're setting yourself up to lose body fat. You can still gain fat by eating too much fat, guys. Stay away from that jar of peanut butter. You know who I'm talking to. And last but not least, I know I'm going to piss somebody off with this one. Buying into diet fads. Guys, diet fads, do they work? I get this question all the time. Do diet fads work? Of course they work. Somebody's in control of your eating. They're making you eat on a point system and telling you, you have to do this, right? True dictatorship. Don't worry about why you're doing it. I'm not going to educate you on why. You just need to eat in your points. And they use a lot of celebrities, right? Well, it worked for Dan Moreno, so it must work for me. The truth is, it's going to work because they're extremely cutting your calories. Okay? They're feeding you prepackaged meals, which probably have preservatives and added sugars and all these things that I just got through talking about. But because they're cutting the calories for you, and sometimes they do put healthy food in there, but they're cutting it for you. So are you going to lose body fat? Absolutely, you're going to lose body fat and weight. But what do you think is going to happen as soon as you're done? They're betting on it. They're betting on it. You're going to gain the weight back. How many people do you know that that's happened to? You know why? Because they didn't educate you. In most cases, they're not educating you. They're helping you extremely cut calories. In many cases, it's affecting your workouts. And a lot of people, especially people who aren't active or don't weight train, they're losing, once again, lean muscle mass. So they're setting their metabolism up for disaster because they're losing a lot of weight, but they're not exercising regularly, or they're not keeping their protein content high. So their metabolism's going to slow down. What do you think happens when you get off the meal plan? You're going to gain the weight back. In many cases, you're going to gain more weight back. You're going to gain more weight back, guys. Sorry about that. Battery's getting a little low. And they're counting on it. Why do you think people go on and off these diets? And then they say, well, I heard this one was good because so-and-so lost some weight on it, right? It's a billion-dollar industry for a reason. They're betting that you're going to come back because you're going to gain the weight back. There's research that proves this, guys. You don't have to take my word for it. Look it up online. So the only way you're going to set yourself up for success is to educate yourself on what is healthy eating. My advice to you, get with a trainer, get with a nutritionist. Do they cost money? Absolutely, they cost money. But so do these fad diets. You're blowing tons of money on fad diets and they're not educating you. Educate yourself. Sit down with a nutritionist. I know plenty. Contact me on Twitter. I can give you the names of 2 or 3. Or myself. I'll sit down and give you a free assessment. Every good trainer and coach in this town will tell you that if you sit down with them, they can educate you on why you're eating what you're eating, so you're addressing your behaviors. What's your motivation behind eating that way? And educating you on what is a healthy, balanced meal plan. Those are the ways that you are successful, guys. Promote lean muscle mass, eating enough protein. Journal your food and hold yourself accountable. Be real with yourself. Eat a reasonable amount of carbohydrates when you deserve it on your workouts. Focus on muscle gain, not weight loss, and you will over time slowly lose that weight and keep it off. Eating unhealthy, healthy foods. We've already talked about that. Eat foods around the perimeter of the store. That's good advice for most people. Don't buy into the fad diets, guys. They work in the short run, but not in the long run. Give me a call or find us on Twitter or on Instagram. Get a hold of me. I'd love to sit down with you and talk more about your eating. In the meantime, I'll see you guys next week. Only nice comments. Thanks a lot.